Harrison Croft sat behind his massive mahogany desk. He watched the tiny, hidden camera feed on his phone. On the sleek marble kitchen counter, a flawless gold Rolex Cosmograph Daytona sat under the bright lights. It was worth more than most people earned in a decade. In less than 5 minutes, Rosa Santos, his new maid, would walk into that kitchen. She was a woman who scraped by on minimum wage. She had a sick son at home and a stack of past due notices in her mailbox. Harrison had played this game before. Every single person he had ever tested had failed. Some slipped a watch into their pockets. Others hid it in the trash to find later. One even tried to claim it accidentally fell into her purse. Harrison believed every human being had a price. He believed honesty was just a luxury for those who could afford it. But what Rosa did next did not just shock him. It shattered every assumption he had made about human nature. It forced a cynical billionaire to look in the mirror and question everything he knew about wealth, loyalty, and betrayal. Before we reveal the unbelievable choice Rosa made, please take a brief moment to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more powerful stories, just like this one. Also, we love knowing our global family. Please drop a comment below and let us know exactly where you are watching this video from today. Now, let us begin our story. Harrison Croft did not trust the world. At 45 years old, he had achieved everything a man could dream of. He owned real estate portfolios that spanned 3 continents. He had a private jet ready at a moment's notice. His bank accounts held more commas than most people saw in a lifetime. Yet, Harrison lived like a prisoner in his own home. His mansion sat high on a hill overlooking the city. It was a brutalist structure of concrete, glass, and steel. To the outside world, it was an architectural masterpiece. To Harrison, it was a fortress. It kept out the wolves. It kept out the opportunists. And most importantly, kept out the liars. Harrison's wealth had not come overnight. He had built his empire from nothing. He grew up in a rough neighborhood where survival meant watching your back. He had been betrayed by business partners. He had been used by women who claimed to love him. Even his own distant relatives only called when they needed a loan. Over time, his heart had turned to stone. He viewed every human interaction as a transaction. He believed that everyone wanted something from him. "People don't love you," Harrison often muttered to himself during his lonely evenings. "They love what you can do for them." To protect himself, Harrison created tests. He was obsessed with testing the loyalty of those around him. He would leave small stacks of cash in his coat pockets before handing them to his drivers. He would intentionally leave confidential documents on his desk to see if his assistants would look at them. Most people failed. The driver would return the coat, but $50 would be missing. The assistant would glance at the papers when they thought he was looking away. Each failure did not anger Harrison. It simply confirmed his worldview. It proved him right. It made him feel safe in his cynicism. Then came the issue of his household staff. Harrison went through housekeepers faster than most people went through groceries. He fired them for the smallest infractions. A speck of dust on a frame meant they were lazy. A missed spot on the window meant they did not care. His latest housekeeper had been fired just 3 days prior. She had picked up a silver coin Harrison had left on the living room table. She did not steal it. She simply moved it to a drawer. But to Harrison, touching his personal items without permission was a red flag. He needed someone new. He needed someone who would do the job perfectly and ask for nothing more. That was when the agency sent Rosa. Rosa Santos was 32 years old, but her eyes held the weariness of a woman twice her age. Life had not been kind to her. 2 years ago, her husband had walked out on her and their young son, Mateo. He left behind nothing but a mountain of debt and a broken car. Rosa was forced to move into a tiny, damp basement apartment on the outskirts of the city. She worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. She washed dishes at a local diner in the mornings. She cleaned offices at night. And during the day, she took whatever housekeeping gigs the agency threw her way. But Rosa's biggest challenge was not the rent. It was Mateo. Mateo was 7 years old. He was a bright, beautiful boy with a smile that could melt the coldest heart. But Mateo suffered from severe chronic asthma. The damp basement apartment made his condition worse. The medications were expensive, The inhalers cost a fortune. Every month, Rosa had to choose between buying fresh groceries or paying for Mateo's prescriptions. On the morning she was assigned to Harrison Croft's mansion, Rosa woke up at 4 o'clock. She made Mateo a small bowl of oatmeal. She kissed her son's forehead. Mateo's skin felt warm, and his breathing was slightly shallow. "Be brave for me, sweetie," Rosa whispered. "Mrs. Gable will be here soon to watch you. Mommy has a big job today. It pays well." "Will you buy the toy truck, Mommy?" Mateo asked in a weak voice. Rosa swallowed the lump in her throat. "If I work hard, yes. I will try." Rosa took 2 buses to reach the wealthy neighborhood on the hill. As she walked up the long, winding driveway to Harrison's mansion, she felt intimidated. The house looked like a sterile museum. It did not look like a home. Harrison met her at the front door. He did not smile. He did not offer a warm greeting. He simply looked her up and down. He noted her faded clothes and her worn shoes. "The agency says you have a flawless record," Harrison said, his voice cold and precise. "I take pride in my work, sir," Rosa said quietly, keeping her eyes lowered. "We will see," Harrison replied. "There are rules in this house. You do not touch my papers. You do not enter the master bedroom unless specifically asked. You clean thoroughly, and you leave exactly at 4 o'clock. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir. I understand completely." Harrison handed her a list of tasks and showed her the cleaning supply closet. Then he walked up to his home office. The test was already in motion. An hour before Rosa arrived, Harrison had carefully prepared the trap. He went to his heavy iron safe. He bypassed the digital keypad and pulled out a velvet box. Inside was his prized gold Rolex. It was a stunning piece of horology. The 18-karat gold gleamed flawlessly. The diamond markers on the dial caught the light beautifully. It was a piece that commanded attention. It practically screamed wealth. Harrison carried the watch down to the kitchen. The kitchen was the heart of the house, a space of white marble and stainless steel. It was perfectly clean, except for the areas Rosa was scheduled to deep clean today. Harrison placed the golden Rolex directly on the kitchen island. He did not hide it. He did not tuck it under a napkin. He placed it right in the center of the white marble surface. It was impossible to miss. Then he adjusted a small, hidden camera disguised as a smoke detector directly above the island. The camera streamed high-definition video straight to his phone and computer. Harrison knew Rosa's background. He had run a full background check on her before hiring her. He knew about her missing husband. He knew about her mountain of debt. He knew about her sick son. "She needs the money," Harrison thought to himself as he walked up the stairs. A woman in her position will see this watch as a winning lottery ticket. She will think a billionaire won't miss one watch. She will think she can pawn it and change her life. He sat in his office chair. He opened the live feed on his monitor. He settled back with a cup of black coffee. He felt a familiar, dark thrill. He was about to catch another thief. He was about to prove once again that human integrity was a myth. Rosa began her work in the living room. She was meticulous. She wiped down the baseboards. She dusted the high shelves. She did not rush. She treated the items with absolute care, even though she knew they cost more than her life savings. As she worked, her mind drifted to her son. She worried about Mateo's breathing. She hoped Mrs. Gable would remember to give him the medicine at noon. Rosa wiped away a tear and focused on her cloth. She could not afford to lose this job. The agency told her that Mr. Croft paid double the standard rate. By 11 o'clock, Rosa moved into the kitchen. Upstairs, Harrison leaned closer to his monitor. His coffee was forgotten. "Here we go," he whispered. Rosa walked into the bright kitchen. She set her bucket of cleaning supplies on the floor. She turned around to survey the room. That was when she saw it. The gold Rolex sat on the marble counter. It seemed to glow under the recessed lighting. Rosa stopped in her tracks. She blinked. She walked slowly toward the island. She stood just inches away from the watch. Through the camera, Harrison watched her face intensely. He looked for the telltale signs of greed. He looked for the widening eyes, the quick glance around the room to see if anyone was watching, the nervous swallowing. Rosa did look around the room. She looked toward the hallway. She looked toward the stairs. She looked confused. She reached out her hand. Her fingers hovered over the golden watch. Take it, Harrison thought. Go ahead. Pick it up. Rosa did pick it up. She lifted the heavy gold watch by its strap. She held it up to the light. She looked at it with deep curiosity. Harrison smiled a cold, victorious smile. He reached for his phone. He was ready to call the security team, to have her removed and arrested. He was ready to call the agency and demand a refund. But then, Rosa did something strange. She did not put the watch in her pocket. She did not slip it into her cleaning apron. Instead, she took a clean microfiber cloth from her bucket. Gently, carefully, she wiped a small smudge off the gold casing. Then, she placed the watch back down on the counter. But she did not leave it in the center. She moved it to the very back of the counter, pushing it against the wall behind a heavy espresso machine. Harrison frowned. He paused his hand over his phone. Why did she move it? Through the monitor, he saw Rosa shake her head. She picked up her spray bottle and began wiping down the front of the island. She worked around the spot where the watch had been. Harrison was baffled. Was she smart? Did she suspect a camera? Was she waiting for a better opportunity? He decided to wait and watch. For the next 2 hours, Rosa cleaned the kitchen. She scrubbed the stove. She polished the stainless steel appliances. She cleaned the inside of the microwave. Not once did she look back at the watch behind the espresso machine. She focused entirely on her work. Harrison's eyes grew tired from staring at the screen. He could not understand her behavior. If she wanted to steal it, she would have taken it when she was alone. If she was afraid, she wouldn't have touched it at all. Why did she hide it behind the machine? At 1 o'clock, Rosa finished the kitchen. She picked up her supplies and moved to the dining room. The afternoon crawled by. Harrison found himself unable to do any actual work. He was completely captivated by this woman. He kept switching between the different camera feeds in the house. He watched her clean the dining room, the hallways, and the guest bathroom. She never snooped. She never opened drawers. She never looked at his private papers. She worked with the quiet diligence of a true professional. At 3:45 p.m., Rosa began packing up her supplies. She changed out of her cleaning apron. She put on her faded jacket. Harrison stood up from his desk. The test was over. She was about to leave. She had not taken a watch. But Harrison was not satisfied. He wanted answers. He wanted to know what she was thinking. Why did she move the watch? Was it a psychological trick? He walked down the grand staircase, just as Rosa was adjusting her backpack. "I am finished for the day, Mr. Croft," Rosa said, offering a small, polite nod. "The kitchen, living room, dining room, and guest bathroom are clean. I left the checklist on the counter." Harrison walked into the kitchen. He did not look at her. He walked straight to the espresso machine. He reached behind it and pulled out the golden Rolex. He held it up, letting the gold flash in front of her eyes. "You found this," Harrison said. His voice was a sharp accusation. Rosa looked at the watch, then looked at Harrison. Her expression was calm. "Yes, sir. I found it on the counter this morning." "And you hid it?" Harrison said, stepping closer. "Why did you hide it? Were you planning to take it later? Were you waiting for me to leave?" Rosa looked surprised. Then, a look of realization crossed her face. She saw the small smoke detector on the ceiling. She understood. She did not look guilty. She looked deeply sad. "No, sir," Rosa said softly. "I did not hide it to steal it." "Then explain yourself," Harrison demanded. "People don't just find a $100,000 watch and push it behind an espresso machine unless they have a motive." Rosa took a deep breath. She looked Harrison straight in the eye. "I moved it because it was unsafe where you left it," Rosa said. "You left it right in the middle of the island. If I was wiping down the counter, my bucket or my spray bottle could have knocked it over. It could have fallen onto the hard marble floor. The glass could have cracked. The gold could have scratched." Harrison stared at her. He was speechless. "I also moved it," Rosa continued, her voice trembling slightly, "because I know this house has many windows. Anyone looking through the kitchen window from the driveway could see that gold watch shining from a mile away. It invited trouble. I hid it behind the machine, so it would be safe from the outside world until you returned." Harrison felt a sudden tightness in his chest. You were protecting it?" Of course, Rosa said. It is yours. It is very beautiful, and it must be very important to you. It is not my property. My mother taught me that if something does not belong to you, it is not your business. My job was to clean your house, not to risk your valuables. Harrison looked down at the watch in his hand. For the first time in his life, his test had backfired. He had set a trap for a thief, but he had found a saint. A heavy silence filled the kitchen. The hum of the refrigerator seemed incredibly loud. Harrison did not know what to say. His entire belief system was crumbling. He had spent years protecting himself from people he thought were inherently corrupt. He had built a wall of money and paranoia. And here stood a woman who possessed nothing, yet she possessed more integrity than anyone he had ever met. You know how much this is worth? Harrison asked, his voice losing its cold edge. I assume it costs more than my rent, Rosa said with a faint, tired smile. It could pay your rent for years, Harrison said. I know about your situation, Rosa. I know about your son, Mateo. I know about his medical bills. Rosa's face paled. She looked hurt. You investigated me? I investigate everyone, Harrison admitted. He felt a sudden wave of shame. He had never felt shame before. I don't trust people. Wealth must be a very lonely thing, Mr. Croft, Rosa said quietly. She adjusted her backpack strap. If you know about my son, then you know I need this job. I cannot afford to be a thief. But more importantly, I want my son to be proud of his mother. A stolen watch cannot buy a clean conscience. It cannot buy a good night's sleep. Rosa turned toward the door. If you are unhappy with my work, or if you think I am a risk, you can call the agency. But I did not touch your watch with bad intentions. Wait, Harrison said. Rosa stopped. She did not look back. Harrison looked at the golden Rolex. Suddenly, the object that had brought him so much pride felt heavy and worthless. It was just metal. It was just gears and glass. It could buy security, but it could not buy the kind of honor that Rosa carried naturally. Don't leave yet, Harrison said. His tone was no longer that of a demanding boss. It was the voice of a man who was deeply humbled. Harrison walked over to the kitchen table. He placed the Rolex on the wood. Then he pulled out a chair. Please, sit down for a moment, he said. Rosa hesitated. She checked her watch. It was 10 minutes to 4. She wanted to get home to Mateo. But there was something different in Harrison's eyes. The coldness was gone. He looked vulnerable. She walked over and sat down across from him. I owe you an apology, Harrison said. He looked her in the eyes. You are right. Wealth can be a very lonely thing. I have spent the last 20 years of my life surrounded by people who wanted to take from me. I became bitter. I became blind. Rosa listened quietly. I put that watch there on purpose, Harrison confessed. It was a test. I wanted to see if you would steal it. I expected you to steal it. Rosa did not look angry. She simply looked disappointed. That is a sad way to live, Mr. Croft. It is, Harrison agreed. And today, you showed me how wrong I was. You didn't just pass my test, Rosa. You blew it apart. You cared more about protecting my property than about solving your own financial problems. Harrison reached into his pocket. He did not pull out a stack of cash. He pulled out a sleek, black fountain pen and a checkbook. He wrote quickly. He tore the check from the book and slid it across the table toward Rosa. Rosa looked down at the piece of paper. When she saw the number, her breath caught in her throat. Her eyes went wide. The check was made out to her for $50,000. I cannot accept this, Rosa said, immediately pushing the check back toward him. This is too much. I only cleaned your house. This is not payment for cleaning, Harrison said, pushing the check back to her. Consider a bonus. Consider it an investment in a good person. I want you to take your son to the best specialist in the city. I want you to move out of that basement apartment. I want you to buy him that toy truck he wants. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. They spilled down her cheeks. Why are you doing this? Because you reminded me that there is still good in this world, Harrison said. A genuine smile broke across his face. It was the first time he had smiled in years. And because I want you to keep working for me. But not just as a temporary maid. I want to hire you as my full-time estate manager. You will oversee all my properties. You will handle the hiring of all staff. You will be my eyes and ears. Rosa wiped her tears. But you don't trust anyone. I trust you, Harrison said. You proved your worth when you thought no one was looking. That is true character. Rosa left the mansion that day with a heavy heart, but for the first time, it was heavy with joy, not sorrow. She took the bus back to her neighborhood. When she walked into her apartment, Mrs. Gable was sitting on the sofa. Mateo was resting in bed, his breathing slightly noisy but stable. Elena thanked Mrs. Gable and paid her. Then she walked into Mateo's bedroom. She sat on the edge of the mattress and pulled her son into a tight hug. "Mommy," Mateo whispered, rubbing his eyes. "Are you okay? Why are you crying?" "I am crying because we're going to be okay, sweetie," Rosa said, kissing Mateo's cheeks over and over. "We're going to move to a big apartment with lots of sunlight. We're going to see a doctor who will make your lungs strong. And tomorrow, we're going to buy the prettiest toy truck in the store." Mateo's eyes lit up. "Did you win a prize, Mommy?" "Yes," Rosa whispered. "I won a prize for doing the right thing." The next week, Rosa started her new role as the estate manager for Croft Enterprises. She excelled at her job. She brought a sense of humanity and fairness to Harrison's sterile world. She hired staff based on character, not just experience. She treated everyone with respect, and in return, the staff worked with absolute loyalty. Harrison's mansion stopped feeling like a fortress. It began to feel like a home. Harrison himself changed dramatically. He began donating large portions of his wealth to local children's hospitals and medical research facilities. He realized that his money was useless if it was only used to build higher walls around his life. He kept a gold Rolex, but he no longer kept it in a safe, and he never used it to test anyone again. He wore it every single day. Every time he looked down at the gleaming gold face to check the time, he did not think about his wealth. He did not think about his status. He thought about a humble woman with a microfiber cloth who had looked at a fortune and chosen honesty instead. He thought about the day a golden watch had finally taught a billionaire how to value the things that money could never buy.